Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm EVM and this is the Ora Cat. It's going to be very difficult for any car to come out and make an impact, but from a brand that's completely unknown to the UK, that's another level. They're not a rival to MG. This is something that I feel I need to apologise to Ora for, because I got it all wrong when it was launched nearly a year ago. I thought this would be another Chinese mass manufacturer trying to, again, compete with MG and the like, and go for kind of the budget sector, the budget brand. That's not what Ora are here for. They're very adamant they are not a competitor to MG. So, who are they a competitor for, and can they cut it in the UK market? Because the difficulty is, Brits are typically badge snobs, and premium is more about the badge for some people than the actual product. As always, let's take a look around this car before we take it on the road and see what it's like to drive. I think whoever designed this, and apparently he used to work for Porsche, but he definitely likes the Mini. There's a lot of Mini going on here. There's even a little bit of Porsche in its kind of front end look. I mean, it's very squat, it's very short front end. I like these kind of bonnet ribs or bulges. A little bit of Carman gear going on here, a little bit. You got this faded in pattern down here. I'm not sure what it's doing there or what it's for, but it just breaks it up quite nicely. And you know what? It's a car that's at least attempting to do something that's not Euro boxy. Panel gaps, spot on, can't really argue there. Definitely not being made by Tesla. There's no front storage in this one. It's all just kind of, you know, mechanicals and machinery. So it's all in the boot, which I'll show you in a minute. And I do quite like the DRLs. You can just see them, they've lit up now. If I get the key, because I'm a professional, don't worry, I found it. These are the indicators and the DRLs. So it's all in this light pod. Unnecessary, but quite a cool feature, the way the lights do their thing. I mean, it won't make me buy the car, but again, gives it a little bit of personality. Whether you like it or not, everybody's going to be different. I fear this will divide the comment sections in terms of looks. You'll either love it or hate it, but I prefer that to, you know, like the Volkswagen ID range. It's not ugly, it's not brilliant, it's very safe, it's very bland. This has just gone, let's go nuts, let's see if we can get some personality, and objective achieved. The side, very bulbous, like I said. It's got a lot of curves going on. Swoops up here to this kind of quite chunky rear end. The charging port is here, CCS. I will give you the specs of that later on. Now let me give you a bit of an idea on its size, because it's tall, but it's quite squat. So for example, against the Nissan Leaf, it's nearly a foot shorter, but it's about that much taller than the Nissan Leaf. So it's very squat. It's good for UK roads, I suppose. To compare it against the MG4, it's near as damn it, given a few centimetres the same size, although it's about 9 centimetres taller. So again, most of its space is in its height, not the length and the width. So it's nice and compact, should be easy to drive in, well, urban environments, country roads, that sort of thing. Not really a major fan of these 18-inch wheels, which are standard on the first edition. Rear entry is excellent, I have to say, very, very good. Although I wouldn't class this as a family car, it's more of a Corsa sort of size, you know, Fiesta size car. You could use it for family stuff, but for me, this is more of a second car, a couple's car, that sort of thing. It's not something that I think you're going to go camping in, for example. The rear end. Now, I've owned 2 Nissan Leafs in my time, the original Mark 1s, if you will, from 2015 to 2000. I'm very familiar with the back end of that car. I feel like I'm looking at the car I used to own. It's even the same sort of colour. It's got very much a Nissan Leaf rear end. I'm not saying that's as a bad thing, only the lights are missing. Where are the lights? Well, you've got them here and along this light bar here, which if I get the key, which I've actually got on me this time, hey, again, unnecessary but cool. Never going to get tired of that one. This is, again, the Funky Cat. Actually, it says funky on the back. People are just going to set the mick out of you because it says funky on the back of your car. You got the reverse camera here in prime dirty place. Why can't manufacturers put it in a badge where it flips in and out? But I guess it wouldn't fit the very minimalistic rear end that you're going for here. Again, no lights in the traditional places, just there and there. I don't think you're going to mistake this for anything else, and that is a bonus for me. Right, the boot. Little bit of an Achilles heel for the Ora Cat. It's got quite... Wow, watch your head. I'm not very tall and I nearly cracked it. It's not the biggest boot in the world. In fact, it's one of the smallest. It's bigger than a Fiat 500, a Mini, but it's quite a bit smaller than things like a Corsa. The ID3, much bigger boot. So you're not going to be going on, like I said, camping trips. This isn't a family-sized boot. You're not going to get a pram in here. It's got quite a high lip. So you can do your shop, you can do all your day-to-day stuff, your commuting. You can, if you pull these, pull the seats down, 60-40 split. So you got a bit of tip run-esque going on there. And if you want to put anything bigger in, there is that option. But ultimately, this is quite a small boot, 228 litres. As this has got a premium edge to it, let's see what the interior is like. Okay, this is the inside of the Ora Cat. The steering wheel, 2-spoke, feels okay. I felt better, but I felt worse. This material is, I would say, hard wearing. It's not the most expensive I've felt. That's okay. The door, that's quite soft feel to it. I quite like this trim here. You got this kind of quilted leatherette sort of approach. That feels nice. Again, this sort of carbon effect trim. Again, I won't say they feel premium, but they're not far off. They feel quite good to use. This bit here, that's quite hard wearing plastic. That goes all the way around to the door bin. So it's not the biggest in the world, but it'll do. Then around the dashboard, you got this kind of soft, suede Alcantara effect. It's not. That goes all along the dash. If I just zoom out here, you can see that the way this dual display is kind of embedded into the dashboard. And I think that's actually quite a good way of doing it rather than just slapped on the dashboard. If I put my foot on the brake pedal, the car turns on. And again, you've got this very common dual display here. Now, these buttons, so this set of buttons does that screen, this set of buttons does that screen, which is nice and logical, funnily enough. I quite like that. So this is the sat nav, which is built in. And if I go to these buttons here, you've got all sorts of vehicle settings and all the usual stuff. I've seen quicker, I've seen better, I've seen worse. I would say it's fairly average. When you're adjusting the temperature, you can do it from there, or when you turn it off and on from here, this comes up. So you can do it in increments by pressing these buttons on either side, or you can hold it down and do that. The only thing I would say is, though, that when you're driving, it's quite difficult to do because it's a very small area you have to press. I prefer physical knobs, as always. This, again, very Mini-esque. I mean, it's straight out of Mini, really, isn't it? So this is the climate control, the air conditioning, and the front and rear windows. Now, the materials along here are kind of, again, that hard-wearing plasticness. You've got a lockable glove box, which isn't that common these days. And, you know, it's not too bad. It's quite deep, actually. This entire bit here is the air vent, and it feels okay. Doesn't feel cheap at all, because you can get this in full black, which I'll put up now. You can get it in the green. You can get it in various colours, and I'll just cycle through them. But ultimately, it does look quite high-end. These seats, which again are standard on the launch edition, you got the quilted effect. It's a bit Fiat 500-y, and that's not a bad thing either. And they are comfortable. Down here, you've got 2 USB ports, no USB-C. You've got 12 volt there for plugging stuff into. That's where your phone can, your key can charge, as well as just a bit of storage. Down here you've got cup holders, and then when we come back you've got a rotary dial to pick reverse, drive or neutral, so you just spin it round, drive and press that for park. And then back here you've got your wireless charging for your phone and a bit of storage there. Armrest, that lifts up, and that's very deep, so you can stick your junk in there. It doesn't move forwards and backwards as this, but it's in a reasonable position for when you're driving. It depends how close you are to the steering wheel, I guess. In the back, this seat is as far back as it will physically go, and I've actually got a good amount of room still. So again, this is for an extremely tall driver. You can see that seat is in a more reasonable position. It's virtually flat, so that's good. You've only got 1 USB port at the back. I'm not sure why there's 2, but I guess that's enough. And the seats are very similar in design, and again, nice and comfortable. You've got the armrest with some cup holders as well. Headroom is actually pretty good. I'm not, that tall, 5'6.5", 5'7", and if you kind of sit up, you might be close. So, you know, 6-footers, you're not going to be in this car in the back for long, but I suspect that's not going to be a major issue. Your feet do sit quite high up though, because you're sat on top of the batteries, so there's not much to support underneath your legs. Now, before we get off, I want to just make something clear, which again, I got completely wrong when they originally launched this car, because the original price that was bandied around was from £25,000. So instantly everyone thinks Chinese manufacturer, similar to MG in terms of pricing, this is another MG alternative. They actually said back then £25,000 to £30,000. It was a year ago. Obviously there's a lot going on in the world. They didn't quite know where they're going with the brand to an exact point in Europe. But this is not an MG alternative. If you're thinking MG4 or this, that's not what Ora are aiming it at. This is a more attainable premium car, I think the phrase would be, by which you can get a lot of premium features, there's a lot of specifications, there's a lot of safety features, but you're not paying through the nose for it. However, you're not getting, you know, think of it like Genesis. So Genesis are the premium version of Hyundai. This is like the premium version of, well, not MG, but I'm going to use that as an example. So it's a very similar size to the MG4 and almost as practical apart from the boot, but the interior is very different. This interior is a lot better than the MG4's interior, even the Trophy. The price of this is essentially, near as damn it, £32,000. That's for this launch edition. Now, I asked whether or not there's going to be cheaper versions, more expensive versions, and the answer is they're not sure if they're going to do a cheaper one. So this could be the cheapest Ora Cat you can buy. There will be more spec'd and more expensive versions of this car, and it's going to cost you between kind of £600 and £800 if you want a specific colour and two-tone interior. So £32,000 to £33,000 for the first edition, depending on what kind of colour you go for. Other than that, everything's pretty much what you see here. It's standard on this version. Now this will come in a 63 kilowatt hour battery eventually. This one has got a 48 kilowatt hour battery. That isn't out yet. That will be out sometime in 2023. I can't tell you the price of the bigger battery version because they're not sure yet, but I reckon it's going to be, what, 3 or 4 grand more. For me, a premium car would be kind of 40, 50,000 pounds of this size, but it's not. It's 32 and up. So it's semi-premium. I'm on the motorway now. It's not the quietest cabin I've been in, but it's not the loudest again. It's kind of in the middle. You know, it is quiet. It's an electric vehicle. They pretty much all are. It feels like I'm driving a small car in terms of I feel very close to the front end, so it's very easy to kind of position the car and park. It's something that's more of a lifestyle choice for me. I guess that means this is aimed at somebody who would buy a Honda E. It's not a practical car, its range isn't particularly good, but people buy it because it's quirky, it's built well, it's quite expensive, it's quite unique on the roads. I see maybe one a month at most. And I think this, given the amount of sales targets they've got for next year, I think this will be very similar. You're not going to see a lot of them on the road. I think they're going to have a tough time of it though. To build a reputation, that takes time. If someone looks at this and thinks what I thought when it was launched, cheap Chinese manufactured car, it's going to be quite difficult for them to change that. I wish they'd have said 6 months ago, whoa, 25 grand? No, we didn't say that. We said 25 to 30 grand. We're not sure on the price yet. It's just the media that went, 25 grand. That's the market, that's what we'll put it out as. Performance in sport mode. It's got decent pickup. I mean, it's not fast, but it's not slow either. It's more than adequate for what I expect. I think it's about nearly 170 brake horsepower, 8.5 I think to 60. If you want something that the neighbours don't have. Similar to a DS3 Crossback E-Tense, I guess. There are parts that you would consider relatively cheap in terms of interior quality, and then there are parts that are premium-esque, as it were. Now, would I have the DS3 or this? You know, I'd go for this because it's more fun and there's nothing else around like it. The DS3 is just a C3 made posher. This is a ground-up EV. Ora is just an electric car brand. Bloody indicators. Turn off! Shut up! Shut up! can't turn the... Oh, that was a nightmare. You do ride quite tall. As I said, it is a tall car, so there's a bit of lean going on here. Not in a majorly bad way, but again, expectations tell me this is not going to handle like a Mini. So I'm getting what I thought I would. An average handling car that's built for comfort over, you know, hooning around country roads. You can have a bit of fun in it though, if you don't push it too much. The steering, even in sports mode, is connected to the wheels just about. So it's not, yeah, it's clearly a city driving sort of setup. It doesn't do anything really bad. It doesn't do anything phenomenally well either. That's just looking at the cold hard kind of spec sheet, top trumps. Factor in its personality, if you will, the funkiness. It does have a niche. People will buy this, I'm sure of it. I do quite like it. Would I buy one? Probably not, but I have other priorities when I buy a car. If you're like my wife, she couldn't care less what the car is, to be honest, as long as it's nice. You know, it's easy to drive, easy to see out. Well, she's not a car person. It's nothing to do with male, female. She's not a car person. So she would probably base the looks of this over how it rides and handles. That's who this appeals to, that sort of person, male or female. If you're not a car person, I think you will probably like this. If you are a car person, you probably won't. Now, according to this, it's done over the last few hundred miles, and that's mainly press people driving it, 254 watt-hours per mile. If I transfer that into the other metric for a second, that's near as damn it, just shy of 4 miles per kilowatt hour. So, based on that, I'm going to say that, well, it's 13, 14 degrees at the moment, it's quite mild. You're looking at 190 mile real world range. So, I'm going to say 170 to 200 mile real world range. In winter, if it's really cold and you're doing poor driving, you know, obviously there are many variables, then it could be a bit less. But in summer, if you tried hard enough, you would probably get over 200. It only weighs 1,500 kilograms, so 1.5 ton-ish. So that'll have a play. It's 5-star NCAP. It does have an app. It's not ready yet, but it will be by the time this car launches, and that will be launching by the end of this year, 2022, so effectively within the next month or so. It's got facial recognition, so it'll recognise who's driving, then it'll preset all your parameters that you've already done automatically. Charging, it'll only do around 64 kilowatts on CCS, of course. That's a little bit low. I mean, for me, every car that's coming out now should be doing over 100. It does make a difference when you're charging, so that's a bit of a downside. It will do 11 kilowatts on AC, if you happen to have 3-phase charging, that is. Now, one thing which I am quite impressed at, the warranty. On the battery and drivetrain, 8 years, 100,000 miles. On the rest of the car, with a few caveats, of course, as always, 5-year warranty, unlimited mileage. So it's essentially similar or the same as Hyundai. As a comparison, MG, they have a 7-year warranty on the battery, drivetrain and the car, but that's limited to, last I checked anyway, 75,000 miles. This is unlimited over 5 years. For those that are wanting to know, I do have some PCP figures for you. With a £5,000 deposit and a £13,800 balloon price at the end of a 4-year agreement, call it £400 per month. So anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Again, let me know what you think. If you want to join, support the channel, see videos early, then please do. It's 99p, it's a bargain. So thanks for watching. See you soon.